Man, I wish there was a flight training app that would tell me what I'm doing today in my training. If there is one, Aopa could do it.
Yes, there is. As the poor guy in the video was wondering, is there an app for that? There is. Hi, I'm Pablo Maurelia, Senior Director of Flight Training Technology for Aopa You Can Fly. So, Aopa has created an in-cockpit app that will help to improve upon existing flight training techniques. Years ago, Aopa conducted some surveys to find out what the issues were in flight training. One of the surprising facts was 70 to 80% of students that start flight training never finish. That's staggering. So let's try to figure out why. And looking through it, there were several questions that were brought up. One being, where are we at? Just in general, what am I doing today? When I go to the airport, what am I going to be learning? Am I going to sit in the plane and just do patterns again? What am I going to be doing? And third is, what's left? Where am I in the process? I know I've got 10 hours of flight, and I have to look at the logbook and count up my hours and see where I'm at. But what's next? What are we doing? So that's where Aopa came in. We've built an adaptive training application for the cockpit, Cfi. We have browser components for portals. So the owner has their own portal that has their own dashboard. The student has a portal for their dashboard and they can see where they're at. And the Cfi. The Cfi has an iPad app. In this case, everything they need for the training is in there. The bread and butter of it, though, is the adaptive piece. No one else is doing this. It's adaptive, meaning when they get into the cockpit, they use the app to grade the lesson. They use a 1 to 5 scale, ACS based. Lessons are created at the end of the lesson on the post-flight based on all of the grades that are inserted into the lesson. After the post-flight, they debrief with the student and they finalize the lesson. When the lesson is finalized, the next lesson is created and is created adaptively. It's all based on that student, no other student. So we take all of the grades given in that lesson, we go through the entire history of their flight training. Certain logic takes over, and we say, okay, this student is learning at this speed. This is what's next. We create a lesson. It could be 2 activities for night flight or something, all the way up to 8, 9, 10, if it includes something like collision avoidance, wake turbulence, things that really aren't practical in that sense. And we create the lesson. By the 3rd or 4th lesson, no 2 lessons will be the same for students at the same school. And basically, it's adapting to the student and how they learn. Since every student learns at a different pace, we've decided to create it to mold it to that student, and to that student, and to this student, and to that student. So the same instructor, 10 students, all 10 are going to be different by 3rd, 4th lesson. They all learn at a different rate. Everyone will be able to see all of their statistics, their grades, the notes with the grades, the parameters they were graded at, and everything else. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the iPad app and see how that works. So, this is the Cfi app. What I've done here is I've opened the app, the Apple iPad app for flight instructors. And so there are 3 portals: Aopa admin portal, flight school owner portals, and student portals. This is the iPad Cfi app. So the instructor would sign in here, as I've done with this test instructor and all these test students within the system. In this case, I am Keith West instructor. I can see students for today, for tomorrow, and fleet data notices. So in this case, this sample, this test beta app is connected to Flight Circle Scheduler. Currently we are integrated with Hold Short and Flight Circle. Hopefully more to come. Or if you don't have either one of those 2, you can choose to do this without an app. You don't need to have a scheduler integrated here. It's just a better experience if you do have it, because then you get all of this data show up immediately. So let's go to our students. If I had students, they would be listed here that I'm training with today, but I don't have any training today. So I'm going to go to My Students at the bottom. I'm going to hit this. You can see all my students here. So the one thing we can do now is take a temp student. So this means that if for any reason I have to take a student from another instructor because that instructor is sick, there's a stage check, for whatever reason I have to take a student that I am not the primary instructor for, I would just hit this temp student button, the yellow one at the top. And when I hit that, I get a list of all the students within the school. And I can go to any of these students and I can take them for this lesson for their check ride or whatever that reason was, like I said before. So if I take, let's do test student 1, he will come up into my system right here. You'll see he's flown 3.5 flight hours. See, it's a pre-flight screen. And this happens every time we go to any student, regardless if it's our primary student or someone else's primary student. Always go to this pre-flight screen. So you'll notice here we've got here, this will be the student's profile picture if they have one. In this case, they do not. Their first name, last name, the certificate they're going for or their goal, and they could be a recreational pilot, a sport pilot, or a private pilot. In this case, they are private, and how far along they are in the process, at 12%. The 12% is everything within the system and every regulation required. So for example, that means that they've finished 12% of all of the private pilot requirements, and that takes into account ground, it takes into account pre-solo and solo activities, practical activities. So this is ACS based here. You'll see logbooks and everything within the logbook that this student currently has with the more right here under that first set, the third row, and that's for the things that aren't commonly completed or filled in. So again, this is stuff like simulator, instrument, multi-engine, night ground, stuff that we do strictly on a completed, not completed, that kind of stuff. That's going to be there just so it doesn't muddy it up. So that's there. You'll notice we give a couple messages here next to the next lesson. Next lesson will be the lesson we're flying today. And those messages are review ADM and risk management, the days since our last lesson, and the activities shown are the most recent score. And that's a reminder to the instructor that these numbers are strictly for what our last score was. And you're going to see any combination of things from numbers, dashes, or letters. Letters are going to be yes or no for proficient or not, or completed or not. And so in this case, the pre-flight inspection, the last time we did it, we did not complete it, so it came back. Power off approach and landing is a 1. The last time we attempted this in the cockpit, we got a 1. Level turns, normal takeoff, all these other things. There's also labels that could be assigned to things. So there could be a new label or a review label. A new label would mean that something here has never been assigned before, and there would be a dash next to it. Something that has a dash with no label just means that it was assigned, but it was not attempted or practically graded last time we flew. And a review label. Review label just means that it's something that has been proficient at least once. You've been graded as proficient on it. You have moved on from it. You've put it aside in a review queue for at least 5 lessons so that we can work on other stuff. But just because we're proficient once doesn't mean we'll always be. So that's why we put it in a review queue. Bring it back every once in a while, periodically, so that we can stay proficient on it. The prep side of things, that's the homework. Just another word for it, right? These are the things that are assigned. Last lesson, at the end of it, we assigned all of these things that relate to each of these things. There will be 1 prep per practical activity assigned. You'll see that there's red X's. This is set by the system. When the student signs into their portal, they will see all of these things, all this information will be in a little different view. However, the student then has to click on these things, or in this case they are clicks, but they watch the video, whatever it is. When they do those things, those automatically go to a green checkbox. And that's what those are. And so this is just telling the instructor, hey, this student has or has not prepared. Previous lesson, if we need to review what the previous lesson was so that we can prepare for this lesson, or if the student has questions as to why we're doing something quote unquote again, you can see that normal takeoff and climb in fact was assigned last time, but we did not do it. We skipped it because of student issues. And so right here we said the instructor skipped it, was not graded. You can see here, normal takeoff and climb is back. We have reassigned it because it was skipped last time, and so that's the student would know that. So we can see the lesson history if for whatever reason the student wanted to review that, but we won't be doing that right now. So at this point we're going to go grade. So the grading part is the cool part, and that's where you get the real magic. So let me show you the Go Fly screen. Okay, so you'll see there's a pre-flight inspection, level turns, constant airspeed. This is the lesson we just saw. So this student has almost no hours, so this is obviously a lot of the basics here. However, you're going to see common errors and parameters for everything. Now this pre-flight, for example, you'll notice, just has common errors. The parameter here, because everything has at least one, is a completion yes or no. So that just means that have they done this? Have you covered everything in here with them? So the pre-flight inspection itself isn't practical per se, but it is something that you should be reviewing with your student. So in this case, we just got common errors for the instructor to put in here. Maybe they didn't do something and we could review it all later. So in this case, we would say maybe they overfilled the oil, underfilled it, let's say, just for safety. They assumed the plane was full. So they did all these things, didn't do very well at it. And properly closed the door, didn't do the dipstick correctly. And we'll leave those for now. So did we complete this? No, we did not. So we'll come back. Now, we can also put these in the right order. Pre-flight's obviously the first thing, so we'll leave that there. But we're probably not going to do level turns right away. We'll probably do descents or maybe climbs first. And so like any iOS app, we can put things in the right order. We obviously have to take off first, so let's do that. We'll do landings last, as this shows. So you can see here, it still acts like a regular iOS app, but we've got these other parameters and we have common errors. So let me show you something else that we can see. Normal takeoff and climb. It's got two parameters, more common errors, right? A lot of common errors. So this, we're assuming, is going to be a cumulative effort that we're grading. We're not going to grade every takeoff. What we're going to do here is say we've done 3 takeoffs. We're just going to take all 3, say, okay, for the most part, they were right here. And so they had a couple errors on it. They didn't do the before takeoff checklist. Their power wasn't set right. And we'll say the mixture wasn't right. So we'll do that just for fun. Or maybe even fuel pump will add that. So these common errors are meant to be like post-it notes. And so we don't want the instructor to have a pad of paper, a pen, all this other stuff taped their legs and all this stuff crazy falls onto the floor, all kinds of issues. We want you to be able to use the iPad app as your note taker, as your grader, as your reminder, as your anything you'd like to see. But the big thing is the instructor is the lead here, right? We're just recommending things based on the student and the grades that you, the instructor, have given. But when it comes to the actual doing of things, it's still up to you. You can choose not to grade any of these, so you're not doing them. Maybe it's too early to do communications. Then no way, too early. So we're not even going to review that today. But we can add things. Let's say we say, you know what, they're pretty good at some other things. Let's do something else. You could hit the plus activity, and you could add anything within the system, all categorized. And when you add something, like let's do straight and level, right? We'll save it. Remember, we're in the cockpit here, and you'll see straight and level has been added to the bottom. So we'll do some of this. They did pretty good. They didn't clear the area though, and they were fixated on their instruments, so we'll give them a 2, and so on and so forth. And so I will continue to do these, and that's a 2. Okay. Again, I'm not doing everything. So we're done. Let's go to done flying. Okay. So now we're on the post brief. Got your required fields at the top. You have your more for the logbook, just like I showed before. So we're going to do, I'm going to put just whole numbers in so it's easier to do it. We flew a remarkable 182. excellent aircraft. We did this today, not the Cirrus. We'll do the Cirrus next time. Landings, we did, we'll say 3 landings. ASEL, that should be the same, right? That's 1. We've flew from GPA to APA. Makes sense. About an hour long. Perfect flight. And 1 for the dual again. So there we go. We filled out the required fields. That's all we did. A couple of positive feedbacks. Great day, 2-day. Sure, that works. And then we can review now. So we have our activities here. This is everything we graded, everything that was in the lesson, obviously. So this is our post brief. We're now in the cockpit, or we're in the flight school. You can see that we didn't score 4 items, 4 activities, but we did score 4. So maybe we didn't want to take our eyes off the student, outside of the plane. We were just a little nervous about this, so we could add activities here as well. Maybe we didn't want to do it in the air, so we could do it here by hitting Add Activity button. And it'll take us back, and we can select things here, or we can just go back and do our post-flight here. So let's review some of the things we've done. Pre-flight inspection. Ooh, we did not complete it. Why not? Well, look at this. You got 4 common errors. You can add more if you'd really like to pile on, or you could put notes here based on those. So the common errors, over under filling oil. So you could just put your comments. Remember, these are post-its to remind you, and you could say that's right. That's what they did or did not do. Careful with oil. And so on. So we would technically probably go through each one of these. You'll see that this is an exact duplicate of how you graded when you were in the air. More common errors, more notes, level turns. We can score it here if we'd like by adding a score. We don't have to. We didn't do it, but figure if you don't want to do it in the cockpit because of whatever reason, you can do it here. Or you could just skip it. We have 4 skips that were not scored, clearly marked. Instead of having to fill all 4 of them, we could just say out of time. Hit the repeat on all skipped activities, and it fills in all of these for us so we don't have to do them all. And so on and so forth. We've reviewed everything, we've put in our notes, and we could put some ground training in. Maybe we did some things afterwards, but in this case we didn't. So we hit the finalize button. Poof. So this is the part where all the magic happens. This is our next lesson. Based on the grades, based on all the history from the first 3 or 4 lessons that we've done, this is where the logic says our next lesson should be. At the very top, you'll notice the Schedule Next Lesson button. That's pretty obvious. But we put that at the top just to remind the instructor, let's plan the next lesson immediately. But other than that, we can say, okay, so next time we're going to do these. And you could say, you know what, I think we might do something else too. So we could plan for that by hitting the Add Prep button. Add in more prep. Let's say we're going to do, level turns, right? So we could select those, and we could add them to our prep. Or we could just say, let's just focus on this. Here's your homework. It's not that much. Do all of it. There you go. And we could assign a custom badge if we'd like. We don't have to. So now we're going to finish. Lesson's over. Done. That's it. We have done our pre-flight with the student. We've graded them in the cockpit. We've flown it. We have debriefed, filled out our logbook, finished. New lesson created, and all done. And now we're back. We can take up another student or do what we wish at this point.
Okay, well that was fun. All right, so we've seen the app. A lot of features that you haven't seen. There's transfer students. There's ways to put students in that already have training behind them, not just new students. There's an assessment tool. The temporary student itself, so if you as the primary instructor can't, or in examples like a stage check, aren't going to be the instructor for that lesson, another instructor can pick up your student for just the one lesson. And I mean, those things are fantastic, right? So in full-fledged demos, we'll see everything in play. So let's talk about really one of the biggest surprises, and that is the activity index. And I say it's the big surprise because it was intended to be a list of activities with some information. Well, it turns out that our testers currently love it, and it really is one of the things that they love the most, which is kind of surprising, but that's cool. And so the activity index is a list of every activity in the ACS, practical, and ground. Anything that's a regulation is in there. So I think there's something like 90 some activities in there. So in all of our categories, from aeronautical knowledge to aircraft control and so on. And so each activity, and you can do this both from the student portal, owner portal, and the iPad app, shows you 9 or 10 tabs. Each of those tabs will have information related to notes to the pilot, teaching tips for the instructor, regulatory links, and so you'll be able to know exactly where a steep turn sits, in what regulation is required, and where in the practical. You will see things like completion standards, and those are the things that you'll be grading for in the app. And so the student will also be able to see those, so he can see how he's being graded and what those standards are that he or she will be held to when flying. These 9 or 10 tabs are just based on the completion standards for 9 or 10. That's why there's 9 or 10. And so if it's a yes or no, there's 9. If it's a gradable activity, there's 10 tabs. Simple as that. So now let's take a look at the activity index and see if it's as cool as everybody thinks. Let's take a look at the activity index. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a button that says activity index. If we hit that, we see every activity for ground and every practical activity, including a few non-ACS like power off approaches, low approaches, something like that. This is the activity index of everything in here. And so this is meant to be the instructor's tool. And so this will give you everything from notes to the pilot, training tips, all the prep that could be assigned for any given activity, and so on. So each one of these will have tons of information. So let's click on one. Let's go to aircraft control. And let's scroll down to steep turns. Okay, there's steep turns. So we clicked on steep turns. Now, there are 10 tabs. These 10 tabs are giving you everything within the system to teach a steep turn or to learn a steep turn, because the student also gets access to this. Now, every activity has 9 or 10 tabs. In this case, this is 10. The reason there's 10 on this one is because this has parameters. The parameters are those things that we've seen before, which are altitude, heading, bank angle, things like that. There are 8 activities that are just yes or no. And so those are collision avoidance, wake turbulence, things like that. Those only have 9 because there are no completion standards. So let's review some of these. The overview on steep turn. This is strictly supposed to be, hey, what are we doing here? What is a steep turn? What are we going to do here? Some ideas for ground prep. So take note, this is not what will be assigned. This is just some of the things to prepare for a steep turn. Completion standards, the second one. This is the grading. This is the parameters. So if you do a steep turn and you looked at the screen for grading, you would see 1 to 5 at the bottom, and you would see 4 parameters at the top, 4 rows of parameters, and these are them: airspeed, altitude, rollout entry heading, and specified bank. Next tab, checklist. Checklist shows you not a checklist of, for example, pre-flight and stuff like that. No, this is supposed to be for a steep turn. These are the things that are considered to be proper setups for a steep turn. Notes to pilot. The notes to pilot is everything for the student to know about each one of those things within the checklist. And this is helpful for them when they go into it and they're preparing for their flight. On their dashboard, they will see all of these things listed within their next lesson. And they'll see what the activities, they can click on and they'll see this exact same layout. You got your common errors. That one's pretty self-explanatory. However, notice that these are the same common errors that you could also put in that post-it notepad area of the grading screen. Teaching tips. So this is everything for a teaching tip on how to teach a steep turn. And this isn't so much just AOPA, but this is all of the instructors that we talked to, and this was a really nice set of a nice knowledge base behind this. It wasn't just AOPA instructors. Alternate procedures. So these are just alternates to the way we're taught or we look at things within the steep turn. Simulator. We have one simulator thing here in the pre-maneuver area, and this just means that if you read this, it'll tell you that it's preferred, or the preferred intro method for a steep turn would be in a simulator. If in fact this is one of the things that is assigned next, there will actually be a sim label next to it just to indicate to the instructor that this is preferably introduced within a simulator. You'll only see that sim label if your school has a simulator, and so that needs to be set up in the configuration. Prep. This is all the homework in the system for when steep turns is assigned. As you've seen, it's one homework assignment or prep work for each lesson. So if steep turns is assigned the first time, this is the order they'll be assigned in. The first time steep turns is assigned, this will appear. The second time it's assigned, this will appear. And that's only if the student has done it, though. So if the student never goes to these things, it'll always be the first one. If the student clicks on these and actually does it, that's when the system is triggered to go to the next one, and so on and so forth. Finally is regulatory. Steep turn pertains to what level? So it's private, rec, sport. Okay, great. Where is it in the ACS standards? And this is supposed to trigger for the instructor to remember, oh yeah, that's flight proficiency, or oh, it's in the private pilot ACS. And so that's what the activity index does.
Okay, well, that was something, huh? You can imagine how long the cord is for the iPad to show you that on there. So, activity index, it seems simple, but when you actually get into it, it's pretty cool because of everything you can do. And you can also see that in a bigger demo when looking at the app as a beta tester. So next, let's look at the student portal. So the student portal has different views, of course, right? So it's not the owner and it's not the instructor. So for the student, when the student signs in, they get a dashboard. Their dashboard has everything they want. And this answers those questions that I talked about early on, which is, where are we? What's left? What's my next lesson? What did I do last time? How did I do? Was I graded? How was I graded? Did we not? I thought we did it. Maybe we didn't. All of those things. So the dashboard has, in big numbers, and you'll see that shortly, number of hours, badges, little gamification for you. What badges have you earned? And those are both custom and automatically generated by the system depending on where you're at. You get 3 tiles right up front. You get your past lesson. You get a memory book. You get all kinds of stuff about your last lesson. All of the grading, all of the notes, everything you did in that lesson. Big tile in the middle shows you the next lesson. So that's how you're going to prepare. You're going to see these are the activities. Here's the prep because, as I failed to mention earlier, when we create the lesson, we also assign prep, and that's in the video. And so it's a 1-to-1 right now because it could be a lot if we did more than that. So we did 1-to-1, but all of the prep available for every activity is in that cool activity index. So that works too. So the instructor can show all of that that's necessary. Maybe he told the student afterwards, hey, these are the things I want you to do. Maybe it's not all of them. Maybe it is. And all of it is clickable. It's all interactive. But when the student clicks on the prep, it also shows up on the CFI's app as completed. And that's something that I showed you in the CFI demo. So the right tile is then notices. So that'll say something like 90-day currency, night currency, medical expired, all those things. And that'll all be on that right tile. So within that, you've got successes, you've got your categories, you've got everywhere you're at in your training broken down into the smallest nugget to the biggest nugget. And now we're going to actually see what it looks like. So let's go to the student portal. Okay, let's take a look at the student portal. So I've signed into the student portal as Jake Keister. He's a sample student within our test database. You can see that this is the dashboard, the first screen that is seen by a student when they sign in. A lot of information, so this would be the school's logo on the top left. Here you got your view progress, and that's the % complete towards their goal of private pilot. Remember, that could be recreational, sport, or private. Big number here, right? What do we always get asked? Hey, how many hours do you have? So total flight hours, 25.6. Any badges earned, with the ability to share them on social media, the all-important social media. And
Just by clicking on that, you'll see that. And that would happen for all of these badges. So these are both system assigned badges and custom badges would be in here. 3 big tiles I discussed. You got your last lesson on the left, the date of the last lesson. This big number 5 is the highest grade received in that last lesson, and that was for emergency descents. You can view your post-flight, which is just what it is, which you saw in the instructor's iPad demo, which was what happens at the end of the flight. And you can see all the grades and all of the activities, and if I, as an instructor, added something, if there was a review item or a new item. Full logbook entry. We had 1 hour ground here. I can also edit the nickname of the lesson from lesson 23 to, oh, didn't get sick. Then you got activities and scores. And so this was everything we did, the grades I received for each lesson, for each activity, and if the instructor skipped anything. So I'm looking at this going, oh, that's right, we didn't do rectangular course or turns around a point. Okay, that's fine. So we can also go to a memory book here, and that's just, we can record greatest triumphs, remember for next time, memorable, fun. I can add a picture, and I can share this as well on social media. The more important tile is the middle one, which is next lesson. So if, because we're integrated with our scheduler, if I had something scheduled, this would be shown here as the date of the next lesson. You can see all of the activities that have been scheduled for the next lesson. You can see the prep items or homework that was assigned based on this lesson. Everything green is something I have done. Everything blue is remaining to be done. And if I click it, it goes to green. And this is where those X's, the red X's in the CFI's app, turn to a green check mark once I hit these. If I want to see a little more information on the next lesson, I would click View Lesson Prep. This shows me all of the activities within the lesson, and it shows me all the prep items and with a little more info. So I get a little description, and I get the source here as well. I can click on the activities to go there at any time. I can also see the actual activities. So if I'm curious about turns around a point, you know, oh my gosh, what's that? I can click this, and I go to the ever famous activity index, and that's something that we just saw as well. I have all of my tabs, just like I had seen before, 10 of them. I can actually go to any of these places that I want, like here it is in the 61.311, and how turns around a point relates to that regulation, and it pertains to all 3 of these. So that's cool, and we've seen that. So there we go. Now back to the dashboard. Lastly, on the right is your alerts, and these are the things I discussed, which is currency and any kind of medical stuff like that that I need to update. Now, I can update this by clicking here, or I can go to my profile and do it. So, and I got my beautiful weather down here for Frederick. Okay, lesson prep. That was what we clicked on from the middle tile. Lesson history. I can see every lesson I've completed. You'll see I have 4 pages of lessons here. I've named a couple of them, haven't named some. You can see along the way it shows me instructor, the date of the lesson, and so forth. Now the instructor, remember, is because we can do the temp, so that a stage check, or if my primary instructor wasn't able to be there, it would show that instructor. Big moment, so I can click at any time. I can see the full lesson. Skipped activities, I can see everything just by clicking on it. If I go to my progress, this is probably my favorite of the things to do here, and that's because this is really my look into everything I've done, and this is the starting point for it. So I can see requirements, I can see how far I've gotten, I can see that I'm 90%, 100%, 75%. This is how far I've gotten within each category in pre-solo and the solo stage. So I haven't even started aircraft control, really. I've only done 33% of them within the solo, only 20% of the takeoff and landings, and so on. Now, if I want to see more information, I could go to successes, or I could just go from here. I could see the full course requirements. How have I gotten to 67% total? Click on view course requirements. That takes me to the successes page. I can see here that I've done 23 of 25 aeronautical knowledge, 10 of 22 aircraft control, 3 of 5 emergency procedures. If I want to see which 12 items I have left, I would click aircraft control, and I can see right here. So I've got almost all of my basic instrument maneuvers remaining. Constant airspeed climbs, ascending turns, descents, level turns, I've got all this stuff remaining. And here the green means that I'm proficient at it. So this means I've been graded to a proficiency. Now this here with a dash should have a number in it. But because this student was an assessment, that's why the airspeed climbs is a dash. And that's because at some point we chose to do an assessment, almost like a stage check for this person or a transfer. Now I know in this case it was a test, but so it was just, yes, he's proficient. Constant airspeed climbs, so anything with a dash in blue has not been graded at all. Anything with a number, green, means I'm proficient. A letter of yes means proficient, and so on. A number, blue, means I am not proficient, but I have been graded on it, so I still have to get proficient on this, and so forth. Also, the big ones here, Aeronautical Experience. What have I done? Anything greens means I've accomplished that piece of it. Anything not checked means I have not. So you'll see I've a medical certificate. It's basically all I've accomplished so far. 0 of 3 cross-country training flight hours. 25.6 of 40 flight hours. Flight training solely by reference to instruments or basic instrument maneuvers. 0 of 3. And the training flight hours are 19 of 20. And so on and so forth. And so every time that's why the logbook is really important for the instructor here and for the proficiency to be marked correctly, because each one of these you'll get notices and notifications, and it's just a good training record, so at any point in training both the student and the instructor know where the student is in progression. So let's go back to this screen here. If I want to see which 93% I've done or what 91% I've done, like for example emergency procedures, I could click this and it'll show me when these things were assigned and if they were graded. In this case this was assigned on the 21st, not graded. On the 12th, not graded. On the 12th it was, and I was yes. It was proficient. 25, emergency ascents, I got a 5. And so on and so forth. If I click on these, it'll just tell you when you earned it, which is already given there. You can click on the actual activity, back to our activity index. So let's go to resources. We've already done successes. So the resources are anything not assignable. So this is for the student's basic reference section. This is like a library for the student. You'll notice that we have a ASA pre-written prep here. It's just a link. So this is my school's resources. So any school that uses this has the right to upload information for their school. And this could be a standard operating procedure, security, maybe checkout, maybe quizzes, links, anything that the school wants the student to have readily available. Aopa resources are the same thing, except they're from Aopa, and they are visible to all schools that are using the system. And so if Aopa puts in some kind of reference, everyone can see it. If the school puts it in, only the students within that school and the CFIs within that school can see what the school puts in. Only that school. And FAA, that one's pretty self-explainable. FAA, these are all the FAA resources, and we've got a couple in here, like the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, Airplane Flying Handbook. And again, this is so that they don't have to be searched. Everything is just, it's like a library. It's all available here. Scheduler. This box only appears when the school is integrated with either Flight Circle or Hold Short schedulers. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We hope to have others, but at this point those are the two that are in there. If you don't have a scheduler, one of those two, you will not see that scheduler link here, so that's just so everyone knows that. My profile. The My profile is really important because from there I, as a student, can change all of my information. So I can change all of this information. I can reset my password, pretty important. Also, I've got all my badges, and from here I can share them as well. Got your flight school information, which maybe you want more info and you don't want to Google it. It's all right there. School-specific info. These are things that my school wants me to put in. These are fields that the school itself has created, and this could be any number of them, but so far these are the only two that my school has put in, and I can update those here. My flight instructor's info. Maybe they've given me a number that isn't published, so I have it all in here. Certificate, and all this stuff is updatable. And you can see that here's the currency that was on the dashboard. And you'll notice that I am not able to add my own checkouts and or my own endorsements for obvious reasons. So that's a quick update, a quick review of what the Students Portal looks like.
Okay, next, let's talk about the Owner's Portal. So the Owner's Portal has another different dashboard. So this dashboard has other information, obviously, because you're not a student or the CFI in this case. You might be both, but in this case, you're the owner. That's why you're signing into the Owner's Portal. What you're going to see there is another dashboard, simple looking, uncluttered, but fully functional with a lot of information. So you're going to be able to download everything within your school's history by date range, by instructor, by student, and the download feature allows you to import into anything you'd like. So you can download a PDF, HTML, CSV, you can put it into Access, Excel, you can put anything you want and create your own reports if you'd like. But the dashboard also has several tiles on top, showing you total students, completed students, active students, things like that. Also, you'll get a big graph, and you'll get to see all your instructors listed, their hours, their students' hours, total hours, and you can see a list of them as well along with the graph. All kinds of information. And this is meant to give the owner the progress, if you will, of the CFI student combo, the CFI loan, and the student loan. So if the student is 50% done, but they've got 90 hours, that'll at least be a flag to the owner to say, hey, what's going on here? Secondly, vice versa. So if the CFI is flying tons of hours, but all his students, his or her students are 20, 30%, it'll be like, what's going on? So it really is, it's just meant to be a high level report, just something to kind of maybe flag certain situations or just kind of give an overall view of the school and the training within the school. Owners can do with that what they like, but it's kind of cool to see where students are at instantly and what their percentage of completion is. So now, let's go see the Owner's Portal.
Owner's Portal. I just signed in as a test school in the Aopa Flight Training Advantage, and I am the owner of this fake test school. You'll notice that I've got 4 values on top. Those are monthly. This current month I have 2 active students, no new students, 1 active instructor, and 3 student flight hours. You'll see my lifetime totals at the bottom, right under it. 5 not applicable, 1 and 77. Now, I mentioned this before, configure stats. So configure stats is pretty cool. You can change these and you can make them by time. You can make it by quarterly, annually, custom. You could do display these, display any of these, none of these, all of these. You can also export, and this is the thing I was talking about before with the reporting. In the export tool, CSV, HTML, PDF. When you download it, you get more info than what you just see here. You actually get all of your instructors, all of your students listed out with all of their hours. And so that's just made more for giving the owner the ability to create their own reports or have their own data that they can make information out of. Got your students by stage, and this is, you can't change this, but solo, cross country, check ride. Right now we have 0 active solo. We have 1 that's in solo right now, not active. So we've got our schedule, which is again integrated, and so this is very similar to what the instructor saw on their iPad app, but in this case it just shows all students, not just the students for that particular person, but this is all my students flying today and flying tomorrow. Again, this is all of the airplanes, and this is all of the squawk information coming straight from our portal, our scheduler. Notice it's just like before. Again, these aren't specific to one student, though. These are specific to your school. And so you'll see all of your students who have any kind of notice so that you're aware and you can take action if necessary. So let's look at some of these tabs. So we got students. The students tab, pretty obvious. All of the students, regardless of stage, regardless of status and goal. Doesn't matter. Alphabetic. You can change by filtering up here, active, inactive, complete. Got our goal. No rec pilots, no sport pilots, all privates. And you could do by CFI. So let's just do all. Sorry, all. We can also search. We can search for a student at any point here or by instructor. We can add a new student as well, but that's something that we will cover definitely in a demo somewhere else. Now, students, there's also CFI. We've got statuses just for the CFIs, but we've got all of our CFIs listed here. Let's go back to students real quick. If I click on a student, you'll be able to see this is our Jake that we signed in with yesterday. This looks like the profile of Jake. We can update his info. We can also send a reset password for him. We can't reset his password, but it would send an email to him. And you've got 6 tabs up there of information. Now, this looks exactly like what they could see. You'll notice that the only difference here being is that they're in tab formation. And then custom info. And so we can see this info here, and we can actually see where they're at. As you can see here, custom information you need to add to the student profile. These can be updated in the settings, and that'll take us here to the bottom. We'll get to that shortly. So your CFIs, same information. We go here. We can see all of their information. And this is what I was saying before about the graphs and where they're at and the CFI to student relationship and so on. You can see all of their students by list here, how many hours each has. You can see the total hours for the instructor. You could see CFI hours, which would include ground, or you could just see the flight hours. So you can see if there's discrepancies, or if there's maybe you like a 2-to-1 ratio and you can see if that's happening or not, maybe like the 1-to-1 ratio, whatever it is, you can see those patterns here. Let's go back. We get our full list of CFIs. You can see their total instruction hours or flight hours. And how many students each has, which could be important. If you see 3 students, 0 hours, you could be like, what's going on? Especially if they're active. In this case, the instructor is inactive, so we would know right off the bat. Prep materials. This is pretty cool. So this is where I was mentioning before about everything that you saw in the activity index, and it shows you the full listing of all the prep within activities. Here is where you can upload your own prep, because everything you see right now within the activity index and all of the prep, it's all AOPA content, meaning we've updated ourselves. There's many sources, but AOPA put those up there. If you want your own content, you can go into here and upload it yourself by this add prep material. You would put in the name, priority. If you give it a 1, it'll always show up first, before all the AOPA stuff, or you could choose to do it later. You could do it 2 or 3 or 4. You can select which one of these you want. Put a link here for a link, description, and category, which is the most important. You cannot forget this part because it won't be included if you don't fill this out. So if this is something for aircraft control, you must put it in there, because then you actually get to dig deeper into which activity it is within aircraft control. So if it's for steep turns, there. Now we've got a place to put it. It'll always show up when steep turns are assigned the first time. It'll show up there depending on your priority level. If you put in a 2 or 3, it'll show up the second time, and so on. So this is everything we've uploaded. I only have one, is this fake school that I've uploaded. Now, you can also go to each individual category and see all of the prep work within that category. And you can see it's a lot. It's a lot of work right there. And that's for every category. If you go to activities, each individual activity, and this is the activity index again, you can see all of the information that pertains to it. And you can see the prep for each individual within here as well, which might be a little easier to see. Resources. The resources are the library portion that we discussed previously. So these are non-assignable library reference type items. This is where you can add them though. The instructor and the student could only see and access these resources. You as the owner can add them. You can see we only have one item in here. We can add another resource, same way. And those will just sit in that repository. And again, they'll only be viewable by your students, no other school within the system. This is everything from Aopa, and this is visible to every school. And these are the resources for FAA. School info. So this is all of my school's info. You'll notice it's a pretty cool school here. Location name, my airport. By putting in an airport, this will change the weather within the iPad and within the student's portal. And you'll remember that there was a weather bar at the bottom. That's where that'll change. We can set our scheduler here. We can set it to none. Let's say we leave flight circle. Or we can set it to either flight circle or hold short. Our owner information, other contact info, and links. So these links are just, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and it just makes it easier to get to because the students and everybody else can see it as well here. Down here, you can add other assets. So this would be simulators and stuff like that. And that would mean if we do have a simulator in here, whenever there's an activity that is preferred introduction within a simulator, that would get a sim tag and it would notify the instructor before that lesson that that particular activity is preferred in the simulator. And then you can add owners and admins and other people to use the owner portal easily enough by add user. And you can reset passwords here, and you can edit this person if you want as well. Announcements. So this is very easy. So what we do here is these are announcements that will show up for your school only in everyone's portal and iPad. So you'll see it show up in your portal, the student will see it in their portal, the instructor will see it in theirs. And it could be something like, welcome to the Aopa Advantage. We could pick how long it'll show. In this case, let's just do a week. We can see that there's no announcements right now, and we can see because there's no red bar. And we can schedule them as well. So we can do that. And then we could also do one for welcome to week 2. We could say let's start this on the 14th, and we'll show it through the 14th. And we'll schedule that. Now you can stack them, so you can have many. And you can see this won't show up until the 14th. So this will show up there. And you can see it showed up right on top in red. Welcome to Aopa Advantage. The student will see it, the instructor will see it. So this is good for maybe you've got a barbecue coming up, or maybe a fly out for breakfast or something. Maybe a movie in your hangar. You could put all that stuff in here, or just reminders for other stuff about maybe security or something like that. Scheduler, again, this doesn't appear unless we're integrated with a scheduler. We are. If I hit this, I didn't do it for the student, but I'll show you here, it takes you to that scheduler. If I hit settings, this is where I can create custom badges. And so what we've done is we have 10 badges that we as a system automatically assign when they're earned. Here though, you'll notice that there's 12 tabs, and these are just 12 different, everyone's got the same badges. They are different than the ones we assigned, so these are absolutely totally different. And what happens here is you can just pick one, and that looks like a sky or something. So I could say first instrument. Save it. It now appears there. Right? And so now, because that's a custom badge, the next time an instructor goes out, they will see this in their post-flight as a possible badge to give. Maybe they did their first instrument flight, they can assign it. The system will also assign badges, like I said, but this is for those where the instructor wants to. And these are school specific. If a school sets it up, nobody else can see it in the system other than school, student, CFI. These are the custom fields. You can add another. we can say, oh, I don't know, we can add headset brand. Okay, so there we go. So we can delete, edit, add, and there's no limit to these, but this will now appear in these students' profile, and they can fill it out. That way I'm always aware of what they have. Maybe I have something set up, I don't know, for them to do. You know, maybe I've got, we're going to have David Clark Day. Anyway, so that is the owner's portal.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that owner's portal. It's pretty cool. It's as an owner, I think you've got all the information you need, and really the best high-level view with a little bit of a couple of nuggets in there that you can dig into as well. So that should be really helpful. So that's it for the pieces of this AOPA Flight Training Advantage. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I loved showing it to you, and man, you know, every time I do this, I say to myself, I wish I had that student portal. That would have been nice, huh? So, but I didn't. I got my pilot's license anyway. So I'm not a statistic. So, next steps. We're in beta testing right now, several schools across the country. There are about 9 students, 5 CFIs, and we're getting really good feedback. I don't want to say surprisingly, but as a software developer, you know, you expect the negative, and we haven't gotten that yet. So I'm really proud of that. Of course, there's things we have to take care of course, right? That's why beta testing. However, the compliments are glowing, and so far so good. So I'm happy about that. Now, we do need some more beta testers. We wanted to start slow so we could take care of any issues if there were any. Wanted to be able to give good hands-on control of this to everybody, and to be able to really work with schools, and you know, we've hit that level of, okay, this has been great, so let's do this. Let's get it out to more schools. So if anyone is interested in helping us beta test, please look at the email below. It's my work email. Get a hold of me. There are certain requirements that we'll have, and so whoever reaches out to me that wants to be part of our beta test, I'll reach out to you, probably give you a demo, talk to you a little bit, and see if it actually works for you. And if it does, and you meet some of those requirements, we're good to go. And so the requirements are minimal, so it's not too bad. But reach out to me, and let's get going on this beta test. We will be releasing this in 2021 because we are in our last milestone of development. And so that'll be done at the end of this year. We got some more beta testing. We'll have an open beta test. We'll have some other releases and all this stuff before we're officially in production. So we'll definitely get back to you if you get a hold of us. So remember, AOPA Flight Training Advantage. And thank you for attending.